All right, Improvisation Center is back again with, yes, the FMT, the truck that has been giving us some little issues while trying to get it right, but now we are ready to get it right. We're in our final push to get this thing right. As you can see, we have some components here. We've got head gaskets, got some intake gaskets right here, as well as the cylinder heads that I mentioned before that you've probably seen in the other video. Got a set of lifters right here as well. We're pretty much ready to put all this stuff back together and hopefully get this thing running like a sewing machine, and of course driving as a result. So go ahead and start pulling all this shit apart, and we're going to start off by getting these cylinder heads on. And for those of you that may not be familiar with putting cylinder heads on, after you seat the gaskets down, there's holes and there's little pegs on the block to help guide you in the placement of the gaskets. You have a set of head bolts, usually 10 of them on a typical V8 cylinder head, and they're tightened in a sequence. Some are 2 different torquings. In the case of our Ford engine here, it's 3 separate torquings leading up to the final torque down, so you can ensure an even, uniform torquing. And you don't just randomly tighten the bolts. You start off in the middle, like in the very middle 2 bolts, 1, 2, move over to one side, 3, 4, then jump to the opposite side of the middle, and 5, 6, and back and forth in pairs until you're done. And like I say, 3 times we're going to do that, getting the torque sequence down, get this stuff tightened down. So remount this camera and go ahead and get started. Let's get it done. Okay, got our heads up here, got our gaskets right here. Go ahead and set this shit down. Let's see. Okay, all even. Little pegs guide me in place. Got these down. Sometimes gaskets might have it specifically set up where you gotta have it one end or another. One side's the top, one side's the bottom. These don't appear to be that way. So those are down. Now the fun part is muscling this shit into place and setting it down without hurting myself or any components up here. So back into the saddle again. Shit. Try to get myself anchored here. Oh, motherfucker. Okay. This side first. Again, gotta be very careful so you don't damage the cylinder head. Make sure something too. Okay. Make sure there ain't nothing inside these little what do you call it? Things that go around the pegs here. Make sure everything is clean as well. Okay. Sitting on the little pegs like I mentioned. Get number 2. The worst part about this is it's not really so much the idea that these things are too heavy. It's the awkward positions that you gotta be in order to mount these things. Here we go. Got them seated. Now, get back out yet again and get our head bolts so we can tighten all this shit down. Alright, we got our bolts. Time to rock and roll with the bolts. Start off with these little fuckers first. Obviously we're not torquing anything down right now, we're just getting them in place so we can start the torquing afterward. Most people will usually say don't reuse head bolts, but it's not a definite thing. As long as the bolts don't look like they're rusted all to hell, or if you haven't pulled an engine apart several times, or if you're not building a super high-powered racing engine, then you're probably going to be fine with reusing head bolts at least once. Alright, got our bolts seated, nowhere near tightened down. Get our tools on here and get everything snugged down, and then we can start the torquing sequence. Stand by. Alright, got our bolts snugged down, and we have our clicky torque wrench. On the website that I looked at for a 302 engine, it recommends 3 torquings, 50 foot-pounds, 60 and 70 foot-pounds for the final hit. So that's what we're going to do, and just like I said, starting from the middle, one pair on one side, other pair on the other side, and then vice versa until we're done. So go ahead and set this thing to 50 for starters. Let's see, we're at 50, and then I'm back in here yet again. Oh, man. Okie dokie. 50 foot-pounds. Let's get it. That one. Of course, the bottom one's going to always be a pain in the ass because, well, shit can be in the way. God damn it. Let's get my foot out of the way first of all. Get this accursed radiator, and I mean AC hose out of the way. I want to keep jarring our homemade oil dipstick. Get my foot out of the way again. Alright, got that one. 2 middles are at 50. Now, over here. That one. Get out of the way again. Okay, that pair is done. This one. Got that. Alright, everybody's at 50. Now let's crank her up to 60. Do the same shit. Alright, 60 is done. Last round, 70. Right. Left cylinder head is fully torqued down. All 10 bolts. 3 sequences, 50, 60, and 70. Go ahead and get the right side done. But I will spare you that repetitive stuff, and I'll take care of that in a second, so stand by. Okay, got our heads torqued down as intended. Next move is going to be lifters, push rods, and rocker arms. As for typical Ford V8 rocker arms, they're tightened as far as this website I looked at says. The torque is between 17 and 23 foot-pounds on the rocker arm bolt, so we're just going to go with the middle ground and say 20 foot-pounds. So got our push rods, box of lifters. Go ahead and get some oil so I could oil all that shit up and slap it on in there and get that part of the engine reassembly taken care of. Stand by. Alright, got our rocker arms torqued down, got all our lifters in, push rods in, everything is in on that part. Valve train is straight. Next move is going to be put on our intake gaskets and mount the intake. Alright, we got our intake mounted down, and if I hadn't already made note of it before, I'll make note of it again. When tightening the bolts on the intake, you can't just tighten one down and then forget about it. After you tighten one down and make your way around, you got to come back and check all the bolts to make sure none of them have suddenly become loose because the intake settled when you tighten another bolt opposite of that bolt. So we took care of all that. I even have the little bracket for the choke cable on there. Everything is done on that, so we could start getting into the home stretch, putting the exhaust manifolds on, putting all our accessory brackets on, and getting all this shit hooked up. So hopefully this thing will actually run. Of course, the distributor will be the last thing that I'm going to put in, because I want to be able to crank it to find top dead center. So hopefully that'll be our first and only attempt at actually seating the distributor right. But with this done, I shall put the valve covers on, put the carburetor on, get all the cables and junk hooked up, and then we'll move on to exhaust. Okay, got our carburetor bolted down, glued the gasket down to the intake to help in its sealing. After putting the carburetor down, that further helps seal it when it all smooshed together. Got our fuel line connected, as you can see right here. Also put the exhaust manifolds on both sides. We got those down. I still have to put the flanges up to get the pipes coupled. Now, would have put the valve covers on, but unfortunately I don't have any valve cover gaskets, so I will have to get a pair to put on there and get the valve covers put on later. But that's not really a game changer. It's just really a small speed bump. But we're going to go ahead and start getting our accessory brackets put on, this one and the other one. And like I said, get the exhaust pipes mounted up, hoses, the distributor, fluids, all that good stuff, and really wrap it up. Technically, I could start this thing without the valve covers, but you already know how that'll go. Big mess. But in the meantime, let's get this other crap together. Okay, we got most of our stuff hooked up now. As you can see, we got our accessory brackets hooked up. We've got our belt on. We have exhaust manifolds on, gaskets of course, fuel line, carburetor, choke cable, a vacuum line, heater hose, rad hose. The exhaust pipes are hooked up to the manifolds. Basically everything is done minus the distributor, as you can clearly see right there. That there will involve me taking out number one spark plug and taking our little remote starter switch thingy so I could bump the thing around in order to find top dead center on number one so that I'll know where to put our distributor at. So that will be our next little thing. Really, it'll be the last thing at this second because I need to get valve cover gaskets. So we'll go ahead and get our distributor set in and conclude this little segment and move on with the gaskets a little bit later. Okay, gonna go ahead and circulate this engine to find top dead center on number one cylinder so we can set our distributor down properly. And I guess you could say the old school way of doing that is to, if you haven't already, remove the spark plug from number one cylinder. It's always good to have a little tool like this, a little remote starter button, and basically put your finger over the spark plug hole on number one cylinder and then just bump the thing over until it basically blows your finger off of the spark plug hole, and you'll know that you're really close to top dead center on number one cylinder. Once that's done, then you can seat the distributor down where the rotor is pointing to number one wire on the cap. So go ahead and do that real quick. Let's see, find my plug hole right here. As you could tell, you heard a pop, and that's where about top dead center is at. So I'm gonna go ahead, get our distributor seated in there, try to get it situated where when I put the cap on, number one cylinder will be pointing right where the rotor is at, or very close to it. Now, obviously, as you remember, we use the HEI hybrid distributor. There aren't exactly any markings on this thing saying where number one spark plug wire is supposed to be at or anything like that. No guides. So, for all intents and purposes, if we really wanted to, we could just pull these wires off, set the distributor down, and wherever the rotor is pointing at, that is where number one is going to start at, and then we just continue with the rest of the firing order, putting the plug wires back on accordingly. So I'll go ahead and get that done. Really, I need to get the cap off first, so that won't be in my way. Okay, I put some oil on the low ring on the distributor shaft. You want to kind of keep that lubed up so you don't risk any damage, especially when you're trying to seat the thing. Another good reason for just going ahead and taking all the wires off the cap and reseating them after getting the distributor down is because of the idea that sometimes getting these things to seat all the way down where you want the rotor to point can be a pain in the ass. But sometimes you might get lucky. Oh, there we go. Lockdown right there. Okay, we are on the base. Right where this rotor is pointing at is about where number one cylinder or number one spark plug will be situated at when I put the cap back on. Kind of good. Nice little straight shot out. Easy to memorize. So I'm going to go ahead, get our plugs, pull our wires off the cap, get all that stuff situated. Okay, we got our distributor in, got our wires on, plugs in. As you can clearly see, the wires are super long because, like I said, most of these cheaper off-brand wire kits, all the wires are typically way longer than need be. Maybe at a later date I'll buy some wires and make a dedicated set for this engine where everything is nice and neat and made to length. But for right now, we just want to get this thing running. So all that stuff is together. our next move is going to be, as you can see, getting valve covers on, which we got right here. We got the gaskets on, they're already curing. By doing that, when I set them down, there won't be much of a problem with misalignment and all. So all the holes are lined up and everything just as well. So these things are ready to just slap right on and bolt them up and be done with that. So let's get this done. Close-up action here. Got our valve covers on, everything is down. Distributor cap, got one last little thing to put in on the Dizzy, and that's this little retaining block. Put that on real quick, and that'll just be to keep this thing from jumping around, especially when it's running. So got our Dizzy in, cap, wires, plugs, everything is together. Batteries in here. Go ahead. One last thing we got is our throttle cable and our brake booster hose. Go ahead and cap those, and we're going to be ready to crank this joker over. So again, stand by. Seems like it's running. Got it with the choke wide open and adjusted the idle to compensate. Now the next thing is going to be to maybe put our vacuum gauge on there, make sure our carburetor is where it needs to be. Play with the idle some more, maybe play with the timing. Can't really do much with it because there's really no spot to check the timing on this hybrid setup. But we're going to play around with it, and then we're going to do another test drive, see how this shit runs. Okay, we are now at the point where we managed to pick us up a new carburetor. What I like to call a faux Edelbrock, because it's not the stamped Edelbrock, but it's made off of the same platform as a typical Edelbrock Performer, based off of a 1405 600 CFM carburetor. So it essentially does the same thing, except a little bit cheaper. But virgin carburetor mounted on our engine here. Another thing I had to do was swap out the starters, because the new starter that was put in there was actually for an automatic transmission. Didn't really realize it until running it and finding out that the damn gears were meshing the whole time and kind of just spinning the Bendix gear while the engine was running. Luckily I had a spare stick shift starter on hand that I put in there, see if that even works. But we do have a fresh battery there, so that should not be a problem unless the starter's just bad, but that's neither here or there. We're pretty much ready to go ahead and try to start this thing up again and see how everything goes. We'll have to do a little tweaking on the carburetor because, well, it's a fresh carburetor, so of course we're going to have to do a little quick tuning on that, but otherwise we're going to see how the engine turns out. Well, as soon as I cranked that joker up with the choke on, it popped right off, as you can see. Throttle response sounds pretty good so far. Go and check this power steering and we might be ready for another test drive. Hey chicken, you ready to go for a ride? Set this little camera right here because we don't have a good spot to set it. See how long this shit lasts. How's that ride, chicken? Where you going, chicken? Where you going? Fucking chicken. Chicken said, fuck this ride. Oh, chicken made it back, I think. Have to make a couple more tweaks on that thing. I'm in second gear right now, taking the throttle enough that it ain't stalling. Yeah, fuck with the idle or something. Yeah, we'll see what we gotta do. Need a little more juice to get up the third. She does not like third gear at a low speed. We are in second right now. Across this bumpy shit. That was third. Dumbass, I was in fifth. Old dog, get your ass out of the way. Bye, old dog. There's third gear. Yeah, fucking bumpy ass driveway. You know, fuck it. We're gonna go all the way. Fourth gear. She's taking all this shit. Definitely gonna have to hook our power brakes back up. Gear. Go back down to second. Stay there, old dog. Well, as we can see, our new faux Edelbrock carburetor is actually doing a decent job, other than a couple little minor tweaks I'll have to make to see about that dip down on the idle, minor inconvenience, but otherwise this thing runs, takes the throttle pretty good. Didn't choke up and act stupid like it did the last time on the other carburetor. So I count all of that as a win. So at this point, we can kind of say we're going into the advanced stages now with the FMT. After we make those little tweaks, like I said, we could go ahead and put some more juice in this thing and start doing some more extensive road testing. So till the next time, oh, another thing I need to do, I need to fix that broken window right there. So yeah, and clean all this other shit out of here. The window needs to be replaced so we can keep the chickens from coming in here and nesting and all that shit. But anyway, like I say, till the next time, you know the deal. Like, subscribe, notifications. We always appreciate your views and likes and everything. Get us out there even more so you can see more of these hijinks like this. So I'm gonna go on and get out of this hot ass truck and play around with it some more outside of it because it's hot out here. So I will catch you later.